It is Friday, April 16th, 2021. This is a virtual regular meeting of the City Commissioners of Rehoboth Beach. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 2:00 p.m. I'd like to start off with the roll call. Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Richard Byrne.
Here.
Commissioner Pat Caluzzi.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Ed Stranowski. Ed, you there? Well, we see you, so you can't hide from us. And Mayor Stan Mills is here. We have a full complement of the mayor and commissioners who are able to formally conduct business. Thank you all for being here. I would like to welcome all those that are watching us, joining us virtually. I'd also like to thank the participants, those watchers that registered to speak in advance. And those persons are Walter Brittingham, David Green, Dan Slagle, Greer Manival, and Alex Papajohn. I will be calling on you at appropriate times during the meeting. Because this agenda is so long, I'd like to see if I can ask each one of you if you have a particular topic or topics, plural, that you'd like me to call on you. Walter, which ones are you particularly interested?
And if I want to talk.
Say that again.
Nothing particular, thank you.
Okay, so I'll call on you for everything. David Green, are you there? Maybe not yet. We'll call on you. I know you want to talk during the Chapter 195 Parks, I believe, Sharon. So we'll call on Mr. Green. Hopefully he's on at that time. Dan and Greer of Rehoboth Beach Main Street, I assume you want to talk during the liaison report. If there's anything else, let me know.
Just bring you up to date on the planters and sidewalk barriers, and also on our banner project for the street.
That'll be fine. I'll call on you during the liaison report for Main Street. Thank you very much. And Alex Papajohn, do you have any particular items you want me to target and call on you on, or everything?
No, I may have a comment on the streetscape task force portion of the meeting. And that's it, really.
All righty, Alex, good. I'll bypass you until we get to that topic. Thank you for being on board here. With that, we'll go to let's see, participants. I want to remind everybody that support documents that are available prior to the meeting are embedded or have a link in the agenda. I think this agenda ended up being 70 to 80 pages long or something. So we're doing very well in supplying documents ahead of time. I would like to note a change of agenda. That I'm withdrawing the nomination to the Planning Commission from the agenda. That is item of business, old business, item 12A. With that, we're going to go to correspondence. There are two pieces of correspondence that were embedded in the agenda, and you can see them there. With that, we'll go to approval of minutes. We have 6 sets of minutes in front of us to consider. Regular meeting held on March 19th, 2021. Special meetings, plural, held on November 17th, 2020, January 12th, 2021, and February 2nd, 2021, March 18th, 2021, and March 23rd, 2021. 6 sets of minutes. Does anybody have any corrections or changes to make on any of those 6 sets? Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve the 6 sets of minutes as presented.
I move approval of the 6 sets of minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have dueling commissioners approving the minutes. Dick, I think you edged out Commissioner Gay. We'll say that you made a motion to approve the 6 sets of minutes as noted, and I believe it was Commissioner Stranowski made a second. All those in favor of approving the 6 sets of minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? No. And the 6 sets of minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Commissioners. On Saturday, April 24th, next Saturday, the city will participate, the City Police Department will participate in the Drug Enforcement Agency's National Prescription Drug Take-Back Initiative. Individuals will be able to drop off their unwanted and expired prescription drugs to the police department lobby. That's next Saturday from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. We participate in this program every year. This year, bulk trash pickup will take place citywide for 1 week only, beginning on Monday, April 26th, and continuing through Friday, April 30th. Due to the pandemic, city staff could not complete bulk pickup in 2020, and this year, with an abundance of caution for our short-staffed city employees, we will continue the program, but for only 1 week. The city has partnered with an outside contractor to actually perform the labor, but the streets department staff will operate the city-owned vehicles. We're publishing this information as best we can on the city website, in a block ad in the Cape Gazette, and we'll be using other avenues to get the word out through next week. Regarding the Lake Avenue Streetscape Phase 2 project, the contractor will be on site Monday, this coming Monday, April 19th, and will finish the project by the end of the week. On Monday only, 3rd Street up to the intersection of Olive Avenue will be closed by the gazebo, and Lake Avenue will still be open. On Tuesday, 2nd Street will be open. However, while paving is going on, there will be delays and intermittent lane closures until the construction is finished. I'm happy to report that 3 employees of the Water Department recently completed a Water and Wastewater Systems Operations Specialist Apprenticeship Program. The Intense program is registered by the Delaware Department of Labor and is carried on with instruction by members of the Delaware Rural Water Association. The program assisted employees with increasing their skills, and they have received a nationally recognized Journey Person certification. We have 1 street aid expenditure to Delmarva Power in the amount of $9,596.14 for streetlights.
I'll take a motion to approve street aid expenditures of $9,596.14.
So moved.
Second.
Help me if you waved your hands when you make a motion, because I can't discern voices there. I think we had a motion by Commissioner Srnowski and a second by Commissioner Calusi to approve street aid expenditures in the amount of $9,596.14. All those approving signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, no. And the street aid expenditures are approved unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to City Solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I wanted to mention, and I've sent a note to the commissioners on this, is that earlier this week in the Boardwalk litigation, the judge or vice chancellor denied both parties' motions for summary judgment. He determined that there was a factual issue that he still wanted to fully develop at trial, that issue being detrimental reliance. So that matter is still pending. The trial date will be scheduled. It hasn't been scheduled yet, and that should be the conclusion of litigation once we get to that trial. But the summary judgment motions were denied. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Glenn. With that, I overlooked identifying the staff as I normally like to do. As I say, it takes a lot of people to run these meetings. In the room with me today is City Manager Sharon Lynn, Solicitor Glenn Mandalis, Public Works Director Kevin Williams, Chief of Police Keith Banks, Project Coordinator Evan Miller, Brent McCormick, IT, and Liz Lingo, City Arborist. Thank you all for participating as well. With that, we'll go to department reports. I don't believe there's any oral report, Sharon.
The only report that I would like to just touch on very briefly is the Finance Department regarding the budget. And just very briefly through February, so that's 1 month short of the end of the fiscal year. Revenue increased by $1.88 million compared to the same time period as fiscal year 2020. And this is attributed to the significant increase this past fiscal year in transfer tax and our newest source of revenue with the hotel accommodations tax. I will provide a full accounting of fiscal year 2021 at your next regular meeting in May, when the books are closed through March, the end of the fiscal year for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Legree?
Glenn, I didn't get the first sentence of your report.
So what I was mentioning, Commissioner, is that both parties in the Beach Walk litigation had filed summary judgment motions, and they were both denied earlier this week.
Okay, thank you very much. And City Manager,
Yes, sir.
I noticed there's a $750,000 deficit on the parks and recreation. I'm sure that'll be cleared up when you make the final announcement for the end of March.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. Is that all, Sharon?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Sharon. With that, we'll move on to board and commission reports. None are identified. We'll then move on to committee reports. Beach and Boardwalk and Beach Committee, you did submit a written report, but that's embedded in the agenda. And I thank you, Commissioner Legree. Do you have anything more you would like to say?
Just a very brief thing. You can read the report, but we've decided that we're going to try just to do dark sky focus on those things we can change, that we can actually change. And that amounts to right now, the lighting with public lighting on the boardwalk. And we're going to try to get with Kevin and work with going forward, getting some dark sky, maybe not compliant, but certainly with that focus, fixtures for our street lamps. And we're already starting to work on it. Our street lamp expert, Honey Fisher, is going to town. So that's about what I would like to ask you if you'd let us do. Thanks, Mayor. All
right, I'll be in touch with you because I'd like to maybe accelerate that a little bit, Commissioner Legree. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the commissioners? I assume you would raise your hand. With that, we'll go to the Street and Transportation Committee. Commissioner Paluzzi, please.
Thank you. The report was from last week, and it's about Sharrows. And I have, if I could share my screen, that would be good. So I will do that.
You go ahead.
So we've met and talked about Sharrows, voted. I think if you read our last report, you'll know there's some information in there that was, well, not very detailed, which is what brought this presentation that I'm doing now to give you more details. So we talked about placements of Sharrows, and I'm going to read this for you anyway. And this was from Chief Banks, who got this information for us. The Uniform Traffic Code does not specify any distance between Sharrows. However, as a rule of thumb, they should be placed 11 feet from the curb face to allow for parked vehicles and the appropriate door open width. The number of markings along a roadway should correspond to difficulty of cyclists trying to take proper travel path. Examples: on a neighborhood street with wide lanes, place markings every 250 feet or more. On arterial, with heavy traffic, narrow lanes, and high parking turnover, place markings every 100 feet or less. So that's sort of the general guidance. This is what we kind of came up with. We talked about in the report that it's very important to have Sharrows as you turn on to, excuse me, my voice, I'm losing my voice today. when you turn onto a street, there should be a share there, so you know immediately, or the driver knows immediately to share the road. So these are the 4 designated streets, and their length. Rehoboth Avenue at 4,584 feet, Bayard at 2,794, State Road at 2,037, and the longest street in the city is Henlopen Avenue at 5,337 feet. So what does that mean? We came up with a placement philosophy that they should be placed at, for starters, right after an intersection. And different streets have different requirements. Basically, the number of cross streets, the speed of traffic, and the volume of traffic. So how does that translate into what our streets look like? So Rehoboth Avenue has a heavy traffic flow, but the speed is slow. Bayard has less heavy, and we would say the speed is medium. State Road, also less heavy, with a speed of, I'm calling it medium plus, because it's generally faster than Bayard, and the same is for Henlopen Avenue. Now, if you look at this, and I'm going to show you another slide in a minute of how we conceptualized and what we're thinking. Unfortunately, I don't have the software to place the exact sharrows on the street, but I will show you some things that will be helpful, I hope. Any questions so far? Okay, so the slower and heavier the traffic, the fewer sharrows, mainly because you don't, with the traffic stopped so as often as it is on Rehoboth Avenue, you don't need as many. So here's the sample placement. This is for the avenue, and I'm going to back up for a minute, and I've got 12 per side here. Now that is probably fewer than what is even recommended, but I think that given where they're placed and the number that makes sense, I think on the avenue, it's reasonable. So if you look at these, you'll see there's one that before you go to the circle, there's one after the circle, there's one here, and this is about 300 feet. Right after State Road, there's one. Here's another one, approximately 300 feet, and so on. So this is the idea that we've come up with in terms of sharrows and where they should be placed. So that's really what I'm looking at for the commissioners to decide that that's a reasonable way to proceed, and that we can hopefully move forward with this before the beginning of the season.
Thank you, Commissioner. At your last presentation, you didn't have any visuals, so I appreciate this. And at your last meeting, you indicated originally the philosophy was to direct bicycles off of Rehoboth Avenue, and now it's kind of, well, go with the flow. And it still gives me a little pause, but I think perhaps the sharrows would help direct bicycles and perhaps make it more safe.
Yes, that's true. Maybe we all want people to look at the sign and take the safe route, but we also know the reality is that people aren't necessarily going to do that. So better to have sharrows there than not. That was sort of the philosophy.
Well, it seems to me that the placement of these sharrows would be critical. Did your committee have Chief Banks' input, or does DelDOT even offer such a service? Because I know they've got a bike specialist.
Right. So yes, we had the chief's input on this, and Kevin Williams was at our meeting. You could, Chief or Kevin, you have anything that you'd like to say about it?
Not me.
No, Commissioner, I don't. As you said, we were in the meetings and did look at the Uniform Traffic Code, and also I think we're fine with it. We just wanted some input on where it was going to go and make sure that the commissioners agreed with moving forward with it.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Cluzy, were you also asking Kevin?
Well, Kevin was, what he wants, what he needs is specifically where we want them. And as I say, unfortunately, I don't have the software to plant like DelDOT does a particular Shero right at the street. So either, there's, Kevin, you can tell me whether that the pink dots would be sufficient or you need more detailed. If you need something more detailed, perhaps, we could go out, some of us, and, mark off where they should be.
But Commissioner, I think that's the right way to do it. If the board says we want to do this, then we'll get together and go out there with Billy and mark on the spots exactly where we want to put them.
Okay.
And despite your pink markers, the Sharos would be white?
Yes.
Come on, we need a little levity once in a while. Come on.
Well, we could
Any
try
questions from any commissioners?
I guess my only question is just with regards, it seems like we're approaching this from a standpoint of kind of our own hometown, which is great. But is there, I'd look to the solicitor with this, are there any liability issues so that we place a Shero and, unfortunately an accident occurs and we get to a point where there is, liability exposure because the Sheros were incorrectly placed, or is there any guidance from DelDOT or USDOT or something of that nature that we should be following? Just concern in that regard.
Well, there may be some guidance from DelDOT, and Evan and I have been working with JMT on a separate project that we might be able to look to. But as far as liability goes, Delaware has a very strong tort immunity act for municipalities. So it's rare that when we're trying to do something that helps protect bicyclists and pedestrians that we're going to be found liable. That immunity act is a pretty strong act to protect municipalities in these sorts of scenarios.
Okay, that's fine. I think I just would hope that when we make a final decision that there's some type of, record of decision, that this is how the decision was arrived at and who was involved and what have you. So we have, a paper trail or something else of that nature, even though the laws are very, forgiving in some regards, but I just feel that there's a follow-up of the reasoning of why this was done, this action was taken.
So, Patrick, how would you like the paper trail to read? I mean, I'm not sure what you're asking for. We're going to go out with we're following the Uniform Traffic Code the best we can, given our situation. And we're going out with the Director of Public Works and placing these. I'm not sure what you're asking for.
I would think just a memorandum to the file, just as simply basically what you stated right there. This is how the decision was made. This is the operation which occurred. End of story.
Okay, well, we certainly have our minutes and our presentation, but yeah, we can also write an additional amendment to the file if you think that's necessary. Again,
I would just look to the solicitor for further advice, but just a concern, that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Byrne, is next, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Commissioner Calusi, for the report. I am curious, if we go with the Sheros as you're recommending and as you've described, will the city continue to direct bicycles as they come into the city across the bridge to turn right onto Canal Street and then onto 6th and so on going east? Because that's what the signage currently does.
That's
and
right.
It seems like it may be a little confusing because with the Sheros, we're showing direction for bicyclists to continue going on down Rehoboth Avenue, and yet the signage is directing them to turn on Canal, and for very good reason, for safety reasons, is the reason we want to generally get them off, unless they're going down to restaurants or businesses.
Right. So that is absolutely the primary focus, is to get them to turn off. We're talking about additional signage for that purpose. But this is the idea of the Sheros is for the safety of those bicyclists who are going down the avenue. We talked about this at length in our meeting, and we decided the bicyclists are better off with Sheros on the avenue than without. And yes, we would try to have signage, because what we really want, and not only signage, but there'll be a bicycle map that's been printed in the past for people to understand that the safe route is to turn.
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Susan, do you have anything you want to?
No, that's exactly perfect.
I have one other question.
Commissioner Sharnowski, please. You're muted, Ed.
Commissioner Gossett can go first. I think he had a follow-up.
Just a quick follow-up. In noticing the work that's being done outside of the, across the canal, realigning the bike trails, and reading the press release from DENREC, it says it's a two-way bike path. So is that going to be realigned so that, again, coming into town, that making that right turn onto canal, the bicyclists would have to cross traffic? I'm just curious if that the
Yeah,
signage.
so it's dicey to be sure.
Okay.
There's bicyclists in the know will cross at Church Street and get on the other side of the street. Then there's going to be those people who have no idea, and they're going to take the two ways going down. And if they do that, I can't imagine necessarily that they're going to try to cross at that point, because there really isn't a way to do it. We're hoping that they just use some common sense, but we really don't have a real answer for that. I mean, Susan, do you?
No, I mean, this has been the dilemma all along, is that for the experienced cyclist, they're better off, and for the experienced cyclist who is going to South Rehoboth, they're better off crossing at the light and riding with traffic the way they would always do and turning onto Canal. But the inexperienced rider who maybe doesn't even want to deal with Church Street because it's a sort of a scary intersection now has an alternative that is being created. And it's a nice alternative between the hotel, but it puts them on Rehoboth Avenue in the wrong direction in a two-way, and they end up at Grove Park, and then what? And so, yeah, it's a dilemma, but I don't know any other way around it. You know,
I'm sorry, just curious as you drive out there, if you look, they've installed a new cement bumper, if you will, right in the middle of the lane. So that would indicate to me that they're going to eliminate that bike lane on the, I guess that's the south side of the avenue. I don't know.
Well, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Well, I just look at it. I mean, that's just my perspective, but that the cement bumper literally sits in the middle of the outbound lane, going of the two lanes going out of the city. The cement bumper is right in the middle of that curb lane, if you will. So I'm just, again, guessing, but they're going to either eliminate one lane going out of town or eliminate the bike lane on the other side to shift the lanes over.
Well, my guess is
let's pause a minute.
Riders will continue to use the lane on the other side anyway, whether there's a bike lane there or not. They'll probably cross the road more than
it's kind of off topic. Sorry.
Yeah. I'd like to pause a minute because I'd like to take the mystery out of this. Do we have plans? Well, you have plans, so we can distribute plans to everybody and talk about this at a future meeting. You want to say anything?
Yeah, Mayor, thanks. I would just say that the drawings indicate that there will be two-way bike traffic on the north side of the bridge, and one lane inbound bike traffic on the south side of the bridge. In addition to the cut through to get away from the Church Street light, there will also be some work done at that intersection to include a bike box and some other things that bikers would be more familiar with than I am. That if you did want to go to downtown Rehoboth or South Rehoboth, I think you're going to be directed to the bike box, cross at the light, and then come in town on the southbound side of the bridge. I think they also left that, according to them, they also left it on that side for all the folks that come in on bikes from outside of town in the mornings. There's a ton of folks that come in on bikes on that side. So there's going to be two-way on the north side of the bridge, one-way inbound on the south side of the bridge. Last set of drawings I saw.
So we'll get those and either distribute them or put them on the next agenda. I would like us all to have a better understanding of exactly what our bike routing is. Commissioner Sharnowski, you ready?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I think this makes a lot of sense. Related to confusion, I think anyone that is staying on Rehoboth and not following the directional signs, they're not going to see the arrows until they've already made the conscious decision to stay on Rehoboth Avenue. So I think it just makes sense to have them at that point. And Related to liability or anything like that, I would think that we're limiting any liability, reminding folks to share the road, follow our laws, and just remind people that, you've got cyclists and vehicles traveling on the same road. But so good job, Commissioner Cluzy. I think this is great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and if there's no further comments, then we'll go to the public. Walter, do you have anything to say on the Boardwalk and Beach report or Street and Transportation report?
I'd like to streamline in 30 seconds about the construction west of the bridge. The city wasn't notified because the project's outside the city. But when you leave from the city and cross the bridge where the white bollards are now, they're going to proceed all the way out to the newly installed abutment. The right lane, there will still be 2 right lanes going out of town, but the lanes are going to be restricted down to 11 feet. So you're going to have the 2 bike lanes behind the bollards, the 2-way bike lanes. You're going to have the 3 lanes of traffic, 2 out and 1 in, and the incoming, the shoulder is going to be reduced to 5 foot. It will slow up traffic, but it's not going to get changed. And they're working on it, and the right people know about it. And you can still, if the city's got drawings, they should have come out. But in any case, that's a nutshell on what's happening. The lanes will be shifted over to the south, and they will be 3 11-foot lanes instead of 3 12-foot lanes as they are now. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Is there any further comment? So I think the direction is, Pat, to go ahead and work with Public Works and Chief of Police and City Manager to accomplish your goals there. Any objections from the commissioners? Very good. So you have your path forward. Thank you, Commissioner Paluzzi. We appreciate it. Is that it for your report?
Yes, it is.
All right. Thank you. With that, we'll go to the next item of business, which is Liaison Reports. Chamber of Commerce, Commissioner Gay.
Yes, in fact, I'm going to be doing the report today. Carol is unable to be here today, and I have an update on various things that they're doing. The first thing is there's a job fair actually happening today out at Rehoboth Mall. It was a sold-out event, and it was so popular early on that if they got enough potential employees to show up, they're going to do another one on April 30th, depending on how the day went. On May 6th, there is the annual awards lunch and installing new board members. It's going to be held at Dogfish. May 14, 15, and 16 is the annual sidewalk sale. So we're very excited to see that coming back this year, since I don't think that happened last year with the pandemic. And the visitor's guide, which was published recently, I think we all got a copy of it. The mailings of the requested guide have already gone out to more than 20,000 people, and all accommodations are reporting very, very strong reservations for the season, which is consistent with, I think, what we're hearing from all ends. And lastly, on May 22nd, there is a street market at Jungle Gyms, which is an event I think they also may have done last year, and they're doing that again on May 22nd. That's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Susan. Appreciate it. With that, we'll go to Historical Society. Commissioner Legree, you're the liaison. Do you have anything to report, please?
No, except that I want to remind again that the beach ball has been set for the 23rd of October, and the museum is still closed. Lots of great videos on the website. It's rehobothbeachmuseum.org, and my favorite one this week is the Lewis Rehoboth Canal. I love that video. So if you haven't seen it, go look at it again. It's a great video. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to Main Street. Dan or Greer, please.
Greer should be.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an exciting time at Main Street, and we're really excited about, in particular, a couple of big items. Obviously, the planters and the street barriers are all coming to fruition with our fundraising and grants that we've attained for this. And we are thrilled to be able to report that it's completely funded. And we will start to work together to get those things in place and planted up end of this month and the beginning of May for that. So that's a very exciting part for all the businesses downtown. The other exciting part is the banner project that we've got going. We're going to be reinstalling new banners on the light poles going downtown, and there'll be more about that coming shortly on that. But it's well in hand, and again should be coming into fruition into May. We want to have this come as the season comes into play. We're busy distributing hand sanitizer, as always, to downtown and merchants, and continue to do that. And we're wrapping up our spring edition of our newsletter, which will be sent out on April 22nd with a lot of information about the banners and the streetscape and all the things that we're busy doing. So I just wanted to bring you up to date on those. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greer. Appreciate it. Any questions? If not, we'll go to the next liaison for Cape Henlopen Senior Center is Commissioner Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. The Senior Center continues to be open, limited hours, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. Virtual programs are scheduled through the month of June. They are doing some limited bus trips to Dover Mall, Christiana Mall, and to local grocery stores for those that need that type of assistance. The fitness room is now open, but with limited capacity. Most recent very popular programs have to do with Medicare fraud and with working with AARP for tax assistance, income tax assistance. And interesting fact, the paid membership in the Cape Henlopen Senior Center is about 50% currently from pre-pandemic time. So it's around less than 600 right now, and it was just about 1,200 pre-pandemic. That's it.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. With that, we're going to go to the next item of business, which is conduct a public hearing on and consideration of an ordinance amending City Code sections 230-3, which is special events, excuse me, 230-12, expressive activity, 236-8, which is subdivision approval procedure, 236-9, which is partitioning, 236-10, minor subdivision, 236-12, major subdivision, 236-32, site plan review, 253-36, appeal to Parks and Shade Tree Commission, 270-28B, administrative variance, 270-73, Board of Adjustment application, and 270-82, building permits relating to the filing of city applications in a digital format. I think very simply, the synopsis indicates that this ordinance revises various city code sections, that the applications made to the city shall be provided in paper, but also in digital format. If you recall, this has been in front of us 2 or 3 times. And I mentioned my desire was to require all agencies that have paper permits to also require them to be submitted digitally. Right now, currently only a permit of compliance application. That's a permit to be able to sell alcohol by restaurants. That permit of compliance is the only one requiring a digital submittal. I believe that has been a successful, and by us providing or requiring the different submittal agencies to provide it in paper form, but also in digital format, it'll save us time from having to scan it and then put it online. It'll facilitate it, make it much easier to add those documents to the online portal. with that, this is a public hearing because some of the items are within the zoning code, and zoning code changes require a public hearing. Ann Womack, are you there? And I'm going to ask you if public notice was made properly. I didn't give her a heads up. We know it was. It's published. Do you have anything, Glenn?
I don't have the date of publication. Is that in? No, I don't have the date of publication.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Ann.
The public notice was posted and published in 3 separate newspapers in a timely fashion.
Very good, thank you. Sorry I didn't give you a heads up on this. Again, any of these code changes under 270, the zoning code require this public hearing, but we decided to group them all together into one event, if you will. If there's no questions from the commissioners, then we'll go right to the public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this? We'll start with Walter.
No, thank you.
We've got Mr. Green. We'll wait for 195. Dan and Greer, Main Street. Alex Papajohn, you wanted to wait till the streetscape, so that is it for the members of the public. With that, we are going to close the public hearing portion of this and take it back to the commissioners for any additional discussion and to entertain a motion. Somebody can make a motion. Please.
Mayor, I move approval.
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Byrne and a second by Commissioner Gay to approve amending the various city code sections recited earlier. Is there any additional discussion? If not, I'd like to do a roll call vote. Commissioner Gay?
Aye.
Commissioner Byrne?
Aye.
Hold a second. Okay, I was double checking with Glenn on something. I'm sorry. Commissioner Calusi?
Aye.
Commissioner Legree?
Aye.
Commissioner Gossett?
Aye.
Commissioner Srnowski?
Aye.
And the mayor votes aye. The code is amended unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the first item of old business. Consider an amendment to the Municipal Code creating Chapter 195 titled Parks and Recreation regarding general rules and regulations, and including rules and regulations specific to the Grove Park Canal dock. Evan or Liz, do you want to take the lead, or?
Evan?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, commissioners, members of the public. So what I'll do is, I guess, similar to last time, the last meeting, we'll just briefly go through some of the changes that were made based on comments for the draft Chapter 195 Parks and Recreation, and then at the end we can entertain any questions or comments you might have. So the first change was made in the definition of park. We added mariners or surfside park, as well as better clarifying Grove Park Canal dock by including that. Second, line 18.
Evan, excuse me, are you taking questions now, or do you want to wait until the end?
If we could wait until the end, that might be helpful.
Very good.
Line 18, for the definition of watercraft, we added to the definition for the transportation of persons or goods on water. Next change was on line 25 under section 195.2 general rules and regulations. And also throughout this section, in general, just removing any reference to on or upon any park as requested by the commissioners. Line 41, number 7, we added the word unauthorized motor vehicle, and again removed upon any park. Line 46, number 9, no person shall test or repair any motorized watercraft, vehicle, motor, or mechanical device. Line 65 and 66, number 16, remove the reference to in all parks except at locations expressly designated for that purpose. Again, in reference to swimming, diving, wading, and bathing. Line 68, 69, and 70, number 17, no person or group may utilize any park area or facility for personal profit or financial gain. So we remove the reference to teaching of an individual or group. And again, clarified Grove Park Canal dock. Next lines 112, 113, and 114. We just inserted some language here that was found elsewhere in the code regarding sleeping, lying, or occupying as the sleeping quarters, any structure, facility, or area of the park during the hours that the park is closed to the public. Lines 126, now we're into chapter or section 195.3, Grove Park Canal dock. Just clarified here that the city will not be responsible for damage, theft, vandalism, or destruction of any property, including contents and personal items. And a similar change to line 128, 129, part D, that the city is not held responsible for failure to secure property, including watercraft contents or personal items. And the last change was the insertion of 195.4B, which is an exception for the farmers market, and that reads, the Rehoboth Beach Farmers Market shall be exempt from sections of this chapter as set forth in chapter 148, which talks about the farmers market explicitly. So those are all the changes that we have, Mayor. We can certainly entertain any questions the commissioners might have.
Thank you, Evan. I'd like to first make note that in the header of the support document, it identifies this as version number 3, meaning we've had this in front of us 2 times before, so this is the 3rd time we're seeing it. I'm not sure if it makes it easy or not, but I would like to consider the discussion in 2 parts. One is the top part of the ordinance that is non-canal related, and then the bottom of the ordinance that is canal related. Have any comments on the non-canal portion of the ordinance? Commissioner Byrne, yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Evan and Liz. Good job in listening to us in the discussion last meeting. A question about park, and I brought this up last time. The public land along Canal Street, between Canal Street and the canal, where the city maintains benches, picnic tables, mows the lawn, is that not considered park? Should that be listed in here or not? Should these rules, I think that these rules in terms of parkland should pertain to that section. I don't see that it's listed in here. I'm not sure that area has a specific name, so I don't know how it legally or technically should be listed, but I think it should be. I'm
wondering if it has any name to it. Does anybody know if that area is named?
It's not named. Most of our names came from the zoning map that had the open space labeled. That area is a little tricky because it's owned by the Army Corps of Engineers. So there would be a lot of questions on if we would be able to have these rules and enforce them without first checking with them. So I'm not sure about that answer. I think Chief has an answer for that.
No, it's more of a question for Liz, Chief Banks. We did an ordinance on no smoking bans, and that area we designated. Do you remember how we designated that in what section? I mean, I guess it'd be in a smoking section, but where we place the signs?
I was not part of that.
Okay.
I was signed.
I didn't know if we kind of named it something and.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't have a recollection. It may have been as generic as all parks.
Oh.
You know, and that was assumed to be a park, but I don't know.
Yeah, that section, if you'll recall, was not included in the original public lands where the no smoking signage went up. And I can't recall, a year and a half ago or something, I brought it up when we were adding some additional areas. We added that section along the canal, and then we added a section around what was then the newer city hall.
Commissioner, would you consider not holding this up, but we look into that? Because I think it's a good proposition to include that. I just don't know that we can solve it today without doing a little more thinking.
Sure, I'm not interested in cleaning it up. I just want to make sure that we're not forgetting something and that it doesn't come back at us. Because, you know, general rules of no alcohol, of no gambling, of no sleeping, etc., are going to certainly apply to that public land as we go forward. So,
Mayor, just to add to answer Chief's question. So Chapter 224, smoking outdoor, Section 2 is smoking prohibited. It looks like item K defines it as the Lewis-Rehoboth Canal Park area on the south side of Rehoboth Avenue between the canal and Canal Street. So I don't know if it was just titled the Lewis-Rehoboth Canal Park as a way to sort of indicate where that signage would be placed. I don't know that it's formally been designated.
I don't believe so.
We did.
I think that you need that lengthy descriptor to be able to describe where it is right now. So unless you can think of a name of it to insert now, then we'll have to come back to it.
One other reference.
Anything else, Commissioner Byrne?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we won't forget that if it's not realized today. Commissioner Gossett?
I was just going to say, when many years ago, when we did the partitioning for Oak Grove, there was a description developed for that parcel of land because there was a financial gift given for that. And we can go back and reference that. It may have a legal description since there was finances involved. I don't know if I can go look back through my records, but it's been 10, 12 years ago. So that might be a possibility.
Right. And you remember that too?
I certainly remember the condition on the application that there be some monetary, and there was some description. I'm not sure how easily it would be to locate it, but yes, I do.
So we can research that, Commissioner Byrne. Again, we won't forget it. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, I'm going to unmute myself to ask my question, but I think my lawn cutters are here, so excuse the noise and I'll try to be quick. I was just going to ask about the signage. You know, there's a clause in here that says that park users must obey any posted rules and regulations. Can we assume that all of the rules and regulations that are in this ordinance are already posted somewhere or other within the parks?
No, most of the parks don't really have rules posted. I think there's a few randomly around Grove Park on the old wooden, but it's really just kind of random right now.
Okay, well, so then my question is, are we going to post the rules now, soon, or wait for the new signage?
I mean, we can take the commissioner, mayor, and city manager's direction on that. I don't think it's a bad idea to get some temporary ones, maybe that can be done in-house or inexpensively, rather than wait over a year for the official one.
Right. And that's kind of where I was going is that, you know, people don't read our code. And so I think if we want the rules to be there, we're going to have to, you know, make an effort to get them there, you know, make sure that all the, you know, all the relevant, all the rules that someone would break are there. And I guess that also pertains to identification, like to the fishing pier. So currently, is the fishing pier designated, or is that a sign that's going to have to be added really soon because the dock is opening? Or maybe I shouldn't ask that because that's a dock question. But anyway, it's about signs.
That sounds like a great job for the Trees and Green Infrastructure Committee,
What, signs?
developing the rules to be posted on the.
Uh,
Thank
Okay.
you, Susan. Commissioner Gossett?
Just a couple of questions. First one for Glenn, with lines 21, 22 there. Um, should the phrase, sort of the preamble to that, include the words just in or upon any park that all of those following conditions are met? Or does it sort of just, because it's a there's a Parks and Recreation, kind of fall into place, but just that the phrase, like after line 21 there, in or upon any park, and then the following 30 items apply.
If I could just add one comment, Commissioner, this is Evan. We thought about adding that section or that language there. Now, I didn't know whether the terminology applied to every single rule or regulation that's listed there. So, for example, number 8. So, in or upon any park in designated spaces, parking shall be limited to the users of the park. So I don't know, it might just be a need to sort of tweak some of the language if we were to add the in or upon any park. But I thought that some of the rules could be confusing when used in that context.
Okay, that's fine with me. If Glenn has any further comment, that's fine.
For technical issues. We're back on. Our apologies, technical difficulty on our end. I have no idea whether the live streaming stopped or was recorded, but I can assure you no business was conducted during that void. We'll go back to Patrick, Commissioner Gossett. I still have your hand up. We're talking about Chapter 195. Do you have anything additional you'd like to say?
The only other thing is line 49, just to provide some flexibility. It says no sign, advertisement, etc. Just the insertion of the word no unauthorized sign advertisement. I think it just add a little more flexibility for the chapter.
I think that's a good addition. Evan's typing now.
That's all.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Any other commissioners? If not, we'll go to the public. Walter Brittingham. You're muted. Are you talking, Walter? You're muted.
So yes, I was talking. Are you still talking about the canal banks and the signs and having posting of signs?
Well, we're talking about Chapter 195, which includes rules and regulations for parks and including a section on Grove Park, what's it called?
Okay.
Grove Park Canal Dock. Go ahead.
Okay. You're doing fine because it fits it all. Because it's an attitude, no sarcasm intended to Glenn, but the city's attitude is you're responsible to know about it, even if there's no sign posted. So somehow there ought to be some reasonable requirements about signs.
Thank you, Walter. With that, Commissioner Gossett, your hand up again?
No, I'm afraid I'll take it down here.
Okay, we'll take your hand down then. With that, we've heard from the public. There's no more commissioner comment. We have Evan just identify, I think we only have really one amendment. And so I would entertain a motion to adopt, what is it called? Let's see, motion to amend the Municipal Code, creating Chapter 195 titled Parks and Recreation regarding general rules and regulations and including rules and regulations specific to Grove Park Cana, with the one amendment to line 49, changing the first wording to no unauthorized sign. Can I entertain a motion in a second, please?
Can I ask a question? I thought you were, I thought you were dividing the discussion into two, and we weren't going to, and this, the discussion we just had was over everything except Canal Dock, and you were going to do that separately because I thought we had someone visiting.
No, that's fine. I thought everybody commingled their comments. So you have let's put it to any comment on the entirety of the proposal.
Well, my only question so far was about the signage, and like in connection with the canal dock, it was the one about the fishing pier to identify where that was. But beyond that, if there is discussion in general from the water taxi company about how it's going to be used, that could generate other questions. So that's why I was asking, you know, what order we're doing things in.
Who's there?
If we do have David Green here from the Cape Water Tours, he's invited to participate by City Manager Sharon Lynn. It would be easier to just, if you have any questions, for him to answer them. Otherwise, for him to remain silent, I guess. Is that all right?
Yes, correct.
Any questions for Mr. Green, the vendor for Cape Water Taxi? Any questions on anything in the entire code? Well, I think we're back to where we were, entertaining a motion with the one amendment.
Hey, Walter, speak.
Sure, Walter.
I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud, but quick thinking is I don't know that anybody else was invited to be there or to participate to speak, if in fact he is there one way or the other. In light of the fact that I understand on the internet there's advertisements about that being used as a point of contact for his business when it's a commercial situation, and I think if he speaks, it ought to be with some standing.
Well, nobody's asking questions. He's not speaking, Walter, so that's moot. Thank you very much.
Okay, I will ask a question here then. Have we sidelined the conversation about the use of the dock specifically and the fees involved and all of that? When are we going to discuss that aspect of this?
Look, we're in a free forum right now, and everybody has gone silent. So if you have any questions, now's the time to do it before we entertain a motion.
Well, my question is, or before we entertain the motion, this particular chapter, 195 Parks and Recreations, as I see it, does not address fees or permits for the use of the city dock, any operation of hours, anything of that nature. Where and when will that be addressed?
I think regarding the fees, it's going to be a change within the section of the code for the business license, which has not yet been drafted. I think there's still, we're still open to ideas and suggestions in terms of the fee that would be charged for a business license for use of the dock. But that code amendment would have to come separately under the business license section of the code. And then any comments about the hours of the dock, certainly open to hear any questions or comments about that. Right now, we do indicate that, this chapter is for all parks within the city. So we address sunrise to sunset, and then we also indicate that other areas, may be designated for extended use. So it could be the case that the canal dock is designated as an area for extended use. In that case, if hours are set for the dock to be open and closed, I imagine that could either be included in this chapter or it could also be indicated on signage that's posted at the dock because we have that section that Commissioner Gay referenced about anybody attending the parks or visiting the parks should abide by any rules and regulations that are posted.
Well, I understand that comment, but I kind of feel like we're getting back to the position we were with the farmers market, that we're going to be asking forgiveness rather than permission. If this organization has already set up and posted on their websites hours of operation of tours, et cetera, and if there are moonlight or sunset tours and what have you, I just think those issues need to be addressed. And I don't know that this is the proper chapter to address it in, but certainly these things have to be discussed and an agreement reached. I don't know whether that's a separate contract with a contractor, as we've done with beach concessions or the operation of the tennis courts or something of that nature. but I just feel that those questions are going unanswered. And I feel we have a responsibility. We've got an investment in that dock of quite a bit of money. And I just think that rules need to be established. And if they need to be altered in a future point, that's one thing. But to have a contractor come in and say, this is what I'm doing, and I've already posted on the website and what have you, and we haven't established or even discussed these aspects of it is of a concern to me.
You want to respond, Sharon?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't, Commissioner Gossett, we have a representative and the owner of the business entity. I don't know if you have specific questions, but certainly he would be available to answer them.
Well, I guess my specific question would be, why is something posted on a website of a contractor and the city has absolutely no agreement with that contractor that I'm aware of to operate or to utilize the dock? If we're using it as a public dock, that's one thing, but why are we giving exclusive use to a contractor? There's a lot of questions that I think are just not being answered. And again, I don't know whether this is the appropriate chapter to do it in. It would seem to me that there are operations or policies and procedures that need to be established or at least discussed, as opposed to just granting, an operator the use of the dock.
Commissioner, so we were not intending to have a specific contract with any of the watercraft operators, owners. We had intended to and will put out an RFP for kayak rentals, but as far as we're concerned here, it's just as another business entity anywhere in the city, a restaurant, a retail, that we don't have specific contracts with them to operate on the public waterway.
But they would be operating on the dock, which is owned by the city. That is adjacent to the public waterway, but restaurants and retails, they own their own buildings. We're talking about a property that is owned and operated and built by the city of the Rehoboth Beach.
A street?
But in this very ordinance, we say that any group or person may utilize the canal dock for personal profit or financial gain by first obtaining a business license. I assume that David Green plans on obtaining a business license for that purpose.
And so is there any limitation? We could have 3 or 4 or 5 operators using that dock for that purpose? And how would we, manage timing? And we've got a 30-minute limit on the docks. How are we going to control that? There's a lot of questions that I don't feel have been answered. And again, I think we're entering an area of asking forgiveness as opposed to permission here.
Well, and let us not forget, we're only 3 weeks away from the so-called grand opening of the canal dock. So the pressure of time is on us.
Yeah,
I think too.
Yeah, that's correct, Commissioner. And so the intention is to have any business operator, any watercraft, obtain a business license. And that's Mr. Green's intention as well. As to why he posted that on his website without having that, I can't answer that other than, Mr. Green's on the call if he'd like to answer that. But this ordinance would presumably put the measures in place for the city to enforce if there are any violations. So as far as signing up for dock usage, this obviously, in Mr. Green's business, is obviously not the only entity, but others will have to come to the city to obtain the proper permitting.
I hear what you're saying, but in my opinion, operating a business, getting a business license to operate a restaurant or a retail establishment in your own building or leased building is different than operating from a publicly owned or city-owned property. So I believe that there's just a lot of unanswered questions in my mind. And with the aspect of a time pressure, we've known about this dock as being built for 2 years. I don't know who set the gala opening or the ribbon cutting for the dock, but certainly if it's city-owned, then we have control of that date, and it can be postponed at any time, in my opinion.
So it seems to me that part of the question that Commissioner Gossett is asking is there an intention by city manager and team or mayor to have the business aspect of this on an agenda in front of us for discussion and to react to in the near future?
Well, it certainly sounds like the business license, if we're contemplating changing that, then we absolutely need to get that done sooner than later. I agree with Commissioner Gossett that there needs to be the fees need to be established and certain rules need to be established. I don't know whether that's a policy. It could be established. Let's go to some. We've got 3 more commissioners that would like to talk. Commissioner Byrne, are you done?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Sernowski?
Thank you, Mayor. It just seems like there's just a few logistical things that aren't yet covered here. And I understand what Commissioner Gossett is asking. I think some of it is administrative and some of it probably needs to be solidified in the I would think the section of the ordinances that covers fees and permits and business licenses. You know, I think this may be the only instance where someone is using a public space that as written here, there could be an unlimited amount of people apply for a business license. So maybe there needs to be a cap on how many business licenses are given for motorized watercraft transportation. You know, and we certainly need to discuss the fee as well. So, but I see all of that as not being in this ordinance, but either an administrative policy or in the section that covers business permits and fees.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, first of all, I'm glad this discussion came up. One of the things that troubles me a little bit is that I think there's a big difference between a business license and a permitting process for something that's as complex as a commercial operation, you know, of watercraft and as we talked about, using our city dock. So it does go beyond your sort of standard business license, but I don't think it's for necessarily part of this ordinance. I never did think that that those details would be part of this ordinance. So I'm prepared to go ahead with this ordinance today. But I will say, and I agree with Commissioner Warren, that time is of the essence. But you know, we need a separate section in our code, and there's a good place for it in the public transportation chapter, because it's the difference between, you know, the personal user, the kayak user, and a commercial operation. And the commercial operation is going to be carrying passengers. That's what it's for. It's a water taxi. There's already land taxis covered in our code. So the place for it is probably a commercial watercraft section that would cover operations, licensing, liability, cost, although the cost would also go in the business chapter, and safety. And you know, in speaking of safety and speaking of timing, I just want to make sure that the lighting is all in place. I think it is, but I don't really know if because it is going to operate after dark a certain amount of the time. And while I think that those rules can all be covered with signage, I don't have a problem with that. We do have other issues that brings up. And I don't know if the cameras are in place for monitoring the dock. I don't know if the lighting is in place. I don't know if we're ready to start, I guess is my point. But that's not necessarily part of this parks ordinance, but it is something we should address very soon.
So, Commissioner Gay, the, Chief Banks, assured me that the lighting is adequate, it is functional, and, it is, properly, working there.
Wonderful, thank you.
Commissioner Gossett, I don't know if, you'd like to have Mr. Green address the fact of other, waterway vessels, as he's quite familiar with that, but, if you'd like to, you know, delay this, for your next meeting, that's fine too.
I don't see any questions as to, for Mr. Green's operation, other than, you know, how did he just assume that it was going to be, that he could operate there? And that's really not for him to answer. I just think that onus comes back to us. And I'm certainly not opposed to passing Chapter 195 Parks and Recreations, but as was mentioned by Commissioner Gay, that, you know, concern of the lighting, well, if we need lighting, that means it's after sunset, which in the code says that the parks are closed. So I know it's, you know, nitpicky, but we're creating this here. So if we're going to start, let's do it right and consider what we are entering into. I just think it's, again, I go back to the aspect of, you know, let it fly and then we'll figure it out later. I just don't feel that the investment that the city has made in not only monetary, but investments of grants that we were extended to build the dock, that we should take this lightly. So again, I'm not opposed to holding up 195, but there certainly needs to be additional work done, whether it's policy, procedure, or addition to Code 250, Chapter 250 in the code. Something needs to be done, in my opinion.
Well, it looks like we have three components here. We still got two commissioners that want to talk, but what I'm hearing here is we've got three components. There's the proposed Chapter 195, which is somewhat set to go. We've got policies, and I don't disagree with having them done in advance. And then we've got the business license fee. So we've got three components there, and at least two of them, of course, are not ready to go. So we've got a situation here. Now, whether to pass 195 and then seek cures for the other two, or just to hold all three up, I'm not sure which way you all want to go. With that, we have Commissioner Chernowski, Gay, Legree, and Byrne. Commissioner Chernowski?
Yeah, I'd like to give an opportunity to hear from Mr. Green. I mean, we've asked direct questions about his operation and what he's marketed already. And I do think he probably has more expertise in this area than any one of us do when it comes to the policy parts.
Well, I don't mind him talking, but I wonder what are we going to gain from listening to him? I want to advance this topic. So if you've got specific questions, I think that's the most helpful. Commissioner Legree.
I talked to a fellow yesterday who rents kayaks out and takes people on tours. I think this lets him out. It's not a motorized watercraft, and he's using our dock for profit. So that's another question. Thank you.
Commissioner Byrne?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm certainly supportive of moving ahead with 195 as it's written in front of us right now, knowing that we have to deal with these other aspects in the very near future. And I would also advocate for us, when we are done, that Mr. Green gets an opportunity to speak as a member of the public and an individual of expertise in this area.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Is there actually a timeline that we need to get this code done? Because we've still got to go to business licenses and discuss that. Sounds like policies still need to be made if you're agreeable to that and amenable to what Commissioner Gossett has proposed. So that's got to take time. So is there really a need to get this done now?
Well, considering it's April 16th, and the, ribbon cutting, presumably for the opening of the canal dock is May 7th, you know, we would have to postpone that, actual opening, if you will.
Well, I think that's feasible. You know, the date for that, we're not going to have business licenses resolved. So,
I mean, the dock could open under this, but we certainly would not permit any commercial operations at the dock. I mean, if we've got to, quote, open it and ribbon cut it and that kind of thing.
How would we open the dock without any rules? I mean, I think that was a requirement for the insurance when they met with them, that certain things had to be posted, certain rules had to be in effect. I think we open ourselves up to a lot of problems without actual rules there.
And that's what we were trying to accomplish, with this, incorporating it in 195. But, again, my recommendation would be, if you're not satisfied with it, we just, hold off on opening.
well, my inclination would be to consider adopting the new Chapter 195 with the one amendment, and then putting on a future agenda discussion of the business license fee. I think there's probably a consensus that we would like for Sharon and Evan and Liz to propose rules and policies for using the dock and bring that in front of the commissioners. Does anyone have a comment on that?
I'm agreeable to moving this forward today.
Say that again, Ed, I'm sorry.
I said I'm agreeable to moving this section forward today. I think we're pretty much all agreement in the rules listed in here. Everything that I've heard so far is administrative. And I don't think that falls in this ordinance at all.
Well, I'm leaning toward approval of the chapter. I am also leaning toward no usage of the dock until our policies are vetted by the commissioners and approved.
I would support that path forward.
So that may hold up canal opening a little bit, and that would be a result of this. Would then somebody like to make a motion?
I move approval of Chapter 195 Parks and Recreation.
With the one change in line number 49, indicating no unauthorized sign.
Yes, thank you.
I second.
So we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Dick Byrne and seconded by Commissioner Ed Stronowski to amend the Municipal Code, creating Chapter 195 titled Parks and Recreation regarding general rules and regulations, and including rules and regulations specific to the Grove Park Canal dock, with the one amendment in line number 49, changing the wording to starting off with no unauthorized sign. With that, I'll do a roll call vote.
Mayor, point of order.
Yes, sir.
You've not yet gone to the public.
Yeah, I think, have we not done that? All righty. Thank you. Walter Brittingham?
I think the approach you're taking is very responsible. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. David Green, are you there? Would you like to say anything?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm here.
Good, thank you. We hear you. We hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Got a little bit of a delay. Thanks for hearing me this afternoon, and just to take full responsibility for the comments or the content on my website. I will own that. Unfortunately, my website is not owned by me personally. It's actually owned through our reservation software, and everything that goes on there has to go through them, and it takes a ridiculous amount of time to have that work done. So we were just trying to get ahead of the game and send it to them, awaiting them to send it back to us for approval before it got posted, but it never was sent to us. It was just posted. So I do apologize for that. Yeah, I mean, we're excited about operating out of there if it's possible. I have spoken with the city manager on a few occasions, more or less kind of answering questions about our operation, our background, and also some questions concerning other operators that may want to operate out of there. One of the big questions that the city manager had was what would be the difference between us and them? For us, we're what's known as an inspected vessel, subchapter T vessel. We are physically boarded and inspected by the U.S. Coast Guard annually, and periodic pop-up inspections, as to where some of the smaller vessels, if they were invited or allowed or applied for the business license to operate out of the dock, may end up being what's known as a six-pack vessel, and they don't really fall under the same types of scrutiny that we do. And I actually spoke with my inspector from the Lewis Coast Guard office, and he was going to reach out to the city manager to maybe just clarify any questions that she might have.
Thank you, David. Do you have any comments on the ordinance itself?
Not at this time, Mayor. It sounds like a lot of this will probably kind of be a work in progress because it's so new, and there's never been anything like this down there. So I think there's going to be potential changes, and suggestions and items that may need to be added as things progress.
Very good. Any questions from the commissioners? If not, we thank you, David Green, for waiting and participating. With that, we'll go to a roll call. If there's no further discussion, we'll go to a roll call vote. If you recall, the motion is to adopt the proposed new chapter with the one amendment. Commissioner Dick Byrne?
Aye.
Commissioner Jay Legree?
I'm going to abstain. I want to know why we put in motorized in G. 195.3G. That's on line 140.
Well, we're in the middle of vote. That would have been appropriate during discussion, but let's see how it goes. Commissioner Gossett?
Aye.
Commissioner Srnowski?
Aye.
Commissioner Gay?
Susan, you're
Commissioner
muted.
Gay?
Aye.
Aye. 5, 4, 5. And the chair votes aye. That's the motion's carried. I would like to note for the minutes that Commissioner Calusi left the meeting for this the entirety of this conversation and did not vote. The vote was 5 yes, 0 no's, and 1 abstention. Thank you very much. Commissioner Byrne, you have an additional comment?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Mayor. I think we've had a little bit of discussion around the May 7th ribbon cutting grand opening. I think we need to be cautious in terms of how we approach that. And I can tell you, I'm not on the inside of it, but I've heard that a number of VIPs have been invited already to that May 7th date. The governor's been invited. I think the Secretary of Transportation has possibly committed, Senator Lopez, Representative Schwarzkopf, possibly others. So I think, want to be able to support that opening, and even if there's a caveat that it may not be able to be used commercially right away because we've not completed our business. But I think holding on to that date is important for us as a city, given what's already happened, from my understanding. Thank you.
My understanding is that canal opening was not to be announced publicly to avoid a crowd and violate the FOIA conditions. So that's why I've been silent on it. Commissioner Sernowski?
Yes, Mayor. It seems to me that a lot of the questions raised about opening it up for commercial use is, I think, pretty minor. And you know, I would ask that we maybe even schedule a meeting for a week from today and see if that's enough time for the city manager to come up with recommendations and a path forward, and just get this done more in a timely fashion. If
I
there
will
is
talk with the city manager. I'm not sure I'm inclined to have another special meeting. I want to identify some of the things here that are still outstanding, and that is to develop, for the city manager to develop a policy and bring that in front of the commissioners. Take a look at the business license fees for use of the dock. Identify the park area, Dick, from your development to the canal bridge. So we've got those three things still on our plate. Commissioner Byrne, your hand's still up. Do you have anything else?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Nope, you're good. All righty. Thank you very much. Any further word from the commissioners? If not, thank you. We'll move on to the next. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Liz and Sharon. Appreciate it. With that, we'll move on to the next item of old business. Consider an ordinance to amend Chapter 92, Automobiles, Vehicles, and Traffic of the Code by amending Section 92-4, Enforcement, to allow a fee to be collected on unpaid parking tickets when sent to a collection agency. Who's sponsoring this, Evan or Glenn?
A little bit of both of us, Mayor. I'm happy to speak to it. This goes along with our intention to switch collections agencies. This will reduce the city's costs for collection on parking citations. However, the mechanism this agency uses is that a fee is tacked on to the collection, to the amount to be collected to pay the collection agency's fee. In order to do that, under the Fair Debt Collections Act, there has to be notice of it given by statute. So that's why we propose amending the city code so we can give that notice through this provision. We also give a notice on parking citation, but the notice is supposed to occur at the transaction point or prior. So when the person would actually park, we have to put them on notice, not when we're giving them the citation. So this does it ahead of time by statute.
Thank you, Glenn. Are there any questions by the commissioners? This is version 2, so we've seen this once before. I believe there was a very minor change between version 1 and 2.
That's right, Mayor. Before we had in the ordinance at line 29, we just said may utilize a debt collection agent vendor. Based upon Walter Brittingham's suggestion, we changed it to may utilize debt collection vendors.
Plural, went plural. Very good. Thank you. That's the difference between version 1 and 2. Are there any questions? This is under consideration tonight. Of course, it's not a zoning code change, so we're able to vote on it tonight. Are there any questions or comments? If not, then I would entertain them. Oh, no. Let's go to the public first. Walter?
No objections.
Thank you, Walter. With that, I'll entertain a motion to amend Chapter 92, specifically Section 92-4, relating to the penalty for violation of all street traffic laws.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Calusi and a second by Commissioner Sernowski to amend Section 92-4 relating to the penalty for violation of all street traffic laws. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those Those opposed say no. And the motion is carried and approved unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the next item of old business, which is still in Chapter 92, another amendment of Section 92-69 and 92-73 relating to changing a portion of 3rd Street from a meter zone with $2 per hour parking spaces to a permit zone. Evan, are you the sponsor? You want to give us a little history of this?
Sure. Now, this is just coming before you all again. It was first introduced at the workshop meeting on April 5th. Essentially, again, just to refresh everybody's memory, we have 2 existing metered parking spaces on 3rd Street from Lake Avenue to Sussex Street. Those 2 meter spaces are just within a permit parking area. So it is a recommendation from the parking department that we convert those 2 metered parking spaces to permit parking to make it consistent. And that's all I have there.
Thank you very much, Evan. Are there any questions by the commissioners? This is actually version 1, I believe, but we've seen it. This is now the 2nd time, so it's not new to us. Are there any questions by the commissioners? If not, I'm going to go to the public. Walter Brittingham.
No objection.
Thank you, Walter. With that, I'll entertain a motion to amend sections 9267 and 9273 relating to changing 3rd Street from a meter zone with $2 per hour parking spaces to a permit zone.
Move to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Cluzy and a second by Commissioner Legree to amend sections 92-67 and 92-73 relating to changing 3rd Street from a meter zone with $2 per hour parking spaces to a permit zone. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, no. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the next item of old business. Consider an ordinance to amend Chapter 64, unclaimed property, sale of the code by amending specifically Section 64-1A relating to the passage of a period of time before the city may sell unclaimed property. Chief Banks?
Thank you, Mayor. This was first presented at the workshop on April 5th. I think everybody's familiar that we are seeking state and CLIA accreditation, so we, at time to time, we go ahead and review our policies and procedures. The one thing we're looking at is our property that comes in that's unclaimed within the police department. The current charter calls for us to hold on to the property for 1 year, but quite honestly, it's been our standard practice for many, many years that after 90 days, we go ahead and switch it out and get it ready for auction, and also, and any monies get turned over to the city. So we're not sitting on the money at the police department. And so we are asking to amend Chapter 64 or Section 64A from 1 year to just 90 days. Again, if the auction hasn't taken place and we can figure out whose property it is and we still have it, we would definitely turn it back to them. So it's not like we're rushing out that after the 90 days, nobody can't still get the property. Our main goal is to always return the property where possible and all. So it's just kind of a formality for us and to keep up with our evidence and property. And this would help us out tremendously.
Thank you, Chief. We have an exception of money. How is money handled?
Again, it goes into our property is locked and sealed, just like any jewelry or any values or whatever. But after this length of time, we would turn it over to the city general fund. And then if we could establish whose money was there, then we go back to the city and ask for a check to be cut back to them.
Right. Thank you.
Again, we're just not holding on to the cash sitting around.
Very good. Thank you very much. Are there any comments by the commissioners? If not, we'll go to the public. Walter Brittingham.
No response.
Thank you, Walter. With that, I'll entertain a motion to amend section 64-1A relating to the sale of unclaimed property that's before us today.
So moved.
I move approval.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Sharnowski and seconded by Commissioner Byrne to amend section 64-1A relating to the sale of unclaimed property. With that, we'll do a group vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. And the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving right along, we're going to go to discussion of results of auction held on April 10th, 2021 pertaining to the sale of city-owned property at 84 Kent and what the path is going forward for this property.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll pass this on for Attorney Mandelis, but we had a successful auction, I believe, last Saturday where the city was able to sell 84 Kent Street, and I'll pass it on to Mr. Mandelis for additional steps in the process here.
Thank you, City Manager. So this property, 84 Kent Street, is not unlike the City Hall property. If you'll recall, when the City Hall was redeveloped, we learned that there is no deed to this property to the city. So we couldn't verify that we had free and clear unencumbered title. Part of the agreement in the 84 Kent sale is that the city needs to deliver clean and unencumbered title. So the way that the process to do that is to file a quiet title petition with the Court of Chancery. And then there's a 3-week publication process. So it's publicized 3 times in a newspaper so that if anybody has claim to the property, we don't believe anybody does, we've had it for a long time, but if anybody has claim to the property, they can then appear at a hearing the court will hold and explain why they think they have a claim to the property. If nobody appears, or if somebody does appear and the judge still believes that the city has title, an order will be issued declaring clear unencumbered title to the city. So we'll finish up the quiet title petition probably in a week and get it filed. We've already got the title search. Then we'll have the 3-week publication process. So in a matter of 2 to 3 months, we should have a court order giving clear title to the city. The agreement, I think Sharon says 4 or 5 months we have to clear the title, so there should be sufficient time to do it. And then that property will go to settlement and it'll transfer. Are there any questions?
I have a question, I guess, that based on this experience with City Hall and also with this property, is it possible that we investigate the rest of the city-owned properties to determine if deeds are in existence for those properties, and if not, start procedures that deeds are developed or acquired for those properties?
If the city wanted to engage in that process, we certainly could. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the number of city properties that are owned, but I would think it's more than a few. Not that we plan to sell any more in the future, but clear title and deed to properties, I think, is very responsible for what we need to as a city. And I think that should proceed to see exactly how many properties are involved.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner LeGree?
I totally agree with Commissioner Gossett. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mayor, I agree as well. I think it's responsible for us to ensure that there's a free and clear title to all city property. I'd ask that the city manager start that process.
Thank you very much. If there's no more commissioner questions, we'll go to the public. Walter Brittingham, any comments on the sale of 84 Kent?
I can see that it would be useful. However, I would ask for some idea what it might cost to do the title searches to find that, so it doesn't come back as a surprise. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. With that, we'll move, if there's no further questions. Jay, you have another comment? Go ahead. You're muted.
I understand that Butch Emmert contributed his fee to the city. And if that's the case, I want to thank him very much publicly for what he did. Am I correct, city manager?
I had not heard that.
Did he?
That Bruce Emmert donated his fee to the city? We'll follow up on that.
No, I did not hear that, Commissioner.
Oh, okay. Great. Check on that. And if that's true, I want to publicly thank him.
Thank you very much.
I did not hear that, but I'll follow up.
Commissioner Gossett?
I'm sorry, just to go back, my request to the city would be to check to see what our own internal documents that we have deeds available for city-owned properties. And if there are outstanding property listings that we do not have deeds, then we could proceed with a cost estimate of what it would cost. But I still think the investment is worthwhile.
Certainly. Thank you very much.
Understood.
With that, we'll go to the next item, which is new business, consideration to award contract for residential recycling collection and disposal services beginning May 1, 2021 and ending April 30, 2024. I'd actually like to share with you, start off with a slide presentation that I made to the Recycling Public Advisory Council many years ago. At that point, I was president of this state recycling council, and it had to do with contamination. I think I tried to hide the fact to the council members when I made this presentation that it was Rehoboth Beach, because frankly, I was embarrassed by how much contamination there was. But I think it shows you what some of the problems are and what the needs are for better education, not just in the city, but this is actually a statewide program. And just to preface this, this is all, believe it or not, recycling, single stream recycling that's been dumped at a material recycling facility. And then this is where it all enters into the machine that sorts it all. It's a 2.5-story machine the size of a football field and does all this very accurately. The only problems are contamination, of course. So let me see if I can, you know, if we had time, I'd leave this up and have you count all the problems in here. You got a plastic bag with dog poop in it. You've got a rubber hose. You've got, these are things that are contaminants. This is. Paper napkins are contaminants. Here's some food and stuff. It's all contaminants in it. How much, how much of that is visibly contaminant? Probably 50% right there. Here's another contaminant. Anything in plastic bags. They hate plastic bags. They fly around the room in the material recovery center and gum up the gears and are truly mess. Here's 5 cans in a row here. Can number 1. Anytime the vendors typically see a black plastic bag, they assume it's trash. There are municipalities where you pay for your trash by weight. And so what the people do is they hide their trash in their recycle bin as a sneaky way to get rid of it. But some of this, so that's trash can number 1. Trash can number 2, you've got these metal stakes and a piece of rubber. You've got number 3, you've got, that's not too bad looking. Number 4 is not too bad looking. Number 5, you got a metal garden hose or something, but there's just a lot of contamination here. That's not mine. That's at a warehouse. The quilt, cloth. The problem is some things are recyclable, but not at a single stream facility. Cloth and fabrics are recyclable, but not at a single stream facility. Here's a blue plastic tarp. Well, it's not that kind of plastic. It's definitely not recyclable. And here's paper cups that are not recyclable. Here's some metal bands that are not recyclable. Yes, metal is recyclable, but you've got to go to Fitzgerald's or one of these metal recycling scrap yards, not at a single stream facility. They don't want these plastic bags here either. Here's, I think, a metal chandelier of some kind. That, yes, metal is recyclable, but again, not at a single stream facility. And then here's aluminum. These are aluminum downspouts and gutter pieces that, yes, aluminum is recyclable, very recyclable, but again, not at a single stream facility. So, and then organics and other things, black plastic bags are not recyclable. So those are just some things I wanted to share with you on the problems of contamination, that it's incredibly difficult to control. It starts with education, of course. But for a lot of these vendors, I noticed in Blue Hen's contract, it says we want you to reject contaminated loads and put a sticker on there. But in practice, that generally doesn't happen because it slows down the process line of collection and everything. So I just wanted to share that with you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Sharon Lynn. If you'd just give a quick little synopsis again, and then I'm sure there's additional questions.
Thank you, Mayor. I have some follow-up that I'll interject here in addition to what I advised at the last meeting, which is the current contract for our residential recycling ends in a few weeks on April 30th. And that current contract is with Blue Hen Disposal. We advertised, the city advertised and received one bid. The monthly service charge for the 3 years of the contract duration, which would begin on May 21 and would end on April 30th, 2024. It's a 3-year contract. The charges would be $3.20 per container for the first year, $3.50 per container for the second year, and the final year, $3.70 for each container. Collections would continue weekly, every Friday from the first Friday in May through the last Friday in September, and then every other week for the period of first Friday of October through the last Friday in April. I have since contacted the Delaware Solid Waste Authority, speaking to Mr. Parkowski there, who the city has a relationship with. In past years, he was not able to provide any information regarding the cost per container because he was not privy to that with other municipalities. However, we did reach out to the city of Dover. We're still waiting for a response from them. They do outsource their recycling to a private contractor. Mr. Parkowski also told me that he confirmed that the inspection process for contamination will begin on July 1 of this year, and contaminant tracing and investigation from a third party will start in the first 6-month period. So that would be July through December, with testing being done on this third party in December, with a report back in a couple of weeks from the testing. They actually go in, they scoop out a portion of the recycling, and they're able to test it for bacterial growth, come up with a contamination level. The level of 15% contamination is pretty much the basis, and the contractor, the hauler, would be charged anything above that 15%, would not be charged anything 15% or below. It's important to keep in mind that the hauler does not just, haul for City of Rehoboth Beach recycling, but, does take it, to the source, with other recyclables that are picked up and that they were contracting with. I was able to clarify that no fees would be, come back to the city. This is an 88% increase, as we said, for the first year of the contract. And, we've been told by Blue Hen that the fact that they have to actually, their employees have to exit the truck and do manual labor to pick up our recycling containers and put it in the back of their vehicle and dump it, is labor intensive. They don't like to do that. They have, everything done automatically through the apparatus on their trucks. So that adds to the cost, in addition to just increased fees on an annual basis and labor, and what they have to pay. Also, the fact that they're coming in on a Friday in the City of Rehoboth Beach in the summer hours, during the summer hours with the many people here, that adds to that as well. So that was what we were able to glean. I don't know if Kevin, you have anything else, or Evan? Okay. Any questions from the commissioners?
Sharon, I apologize if I missed you. Can you remind me what we pay to dump recycling? There's the fee for solid waste we pay by the ton. Are we charged a fee for dumping recycling? I don't believe there is a fee. Okay.
We're not dumping it right now, so I
Right.
don't know that we would have a
Right.
fee. We have to call and see what the fee is.
Well, no, but I believe we have a contract with DSWA that says there's no fee. So,
No fee.
so Blue Hen is not paying a tipping fee for recycling, I don't think.
That I don't know. Yeah.
Right? Okay. All righty. Commissioner Legree?
I'm really unclear on how this is going to work. We're going to pay a fee of $3.20 per container per dump. And they're going to take it over to Jones Crossroads where they do single stream. And almost certainly there's going to be contamination problems. What happens then? Will Blue Hen be prohibited from unloading? What will happen, City Manager? I'm unclear.
So my understanding is they don't test it right there and then. They do weigh it, and then within that 6-month period, the first 6 months, July through December, this third party hired by DSWA will then inspect a sampling of each truck that they choose. It won't always be Blue Hen. It'll be other business entities. And from there, they'll take a reading, however they do that, and anything above 15% will be charged back to the hauler.
And the hauler may not know where it came from, or will he, or will they?
Well, the hauler has, various loads that they pick up from their contracts with other entities, whether it's other cities or private residential areas. That's up to the hauler what they bring. They do not take the City of Rehoboth Beach's recycling and dump it and then go back and get everyone else.
Well, that's where I like the old days, because the contract did segregate it. They could only pick up Rehoboth Beach and to take it to the transfer station. And what that did is that ensured whatever they were dumping was only from the city of Rehoboth Beach, but it also gave us figures. We got tipping weights on a dumping basis. And annually, I used to keep figures, and we could see that the recycling was growing each year for the first 10 years of business. Now we can't use those figures because it's liable to be commingled with other towns, and it just doesn't work that way. I'm sorry, Commissioner, go ahead. Do I agree?
Yes, I think according to Kevin, we have 1,841 containers. And if I figured my off-season and on-season pickup numbers correct, we're going to be paying about $118.40 per year per container, which comes to about $217,000 per year. My numbers may be wrong, but these are back of the envelope. We need to figure out a way to recover that money from the users, and or maybe we don't. I don't know, but it can really get tangled up because I saw a suggestion where each container owner is required to put their address on the side of their container, and the way Blue Hen does, they have no way of knowing what was dumped into the truck because the driver doesn't even get out of the truck. And another problem is that if we decide to pass that fee on to the container owner, it's got to be mandatory because otherwise they'll decline to own a container. So just some questions that I had, and these are significant dollars, but yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. And just to reiterate, at the last meeting, we agreed that at some point in the future, we would review the fees for waste, yard waste, and recycling combined, I think. Commissioner Srnowski?
Yeah. So this message is for the city manager. I know a resident in town that mentioned there were 2 other recycling companies that were willing to bid, but were unaware of the bid process at the original date. Is there any opportunity to consider those 2 options now?
My recommendation is that we do not go that route. We did receive 1 bid. We advertised the bid. It's unfortunate that the other 2 entities did not see or look for the advertisement. That's certainly not the city's position to do that. And I think we could perhaps get into a situation where, you know, obviously the low bid, even though it's the one bidding contractor, could say, well, open my bid and it's X amount of dollars, and if the other 2 entities would bid a penny lower or whatever or more, then, you know, Blue Hen could turn around and either increase their rate or just renege totally, and we could wind up without having a recycling service.
Thank you.
I would recommend not going that route.
No, that explanation makes perfect sense. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Commissioner Byrne?
There we go. I know the city charges properties for trash removal each year. I'm curious, is there a history for not charging for recycling pickup? Is there a reason we've not gone that direction, or is it just not been considered?
Well, my recollection's not perfect. I believe the way this program started was that the Delaware Solid Waste gave us bins for free at the beginning, and they did the collections themselves, trying to get it all started. And then after several years, they decided not to do that program anymore statewide, and they gave us their bins which we had to purchase our own afterwards to augment as the number of recyclers grew. And then, of course, at that point, when they withdrew, we had to hire our own vendor. I think we started with First State Disposal, and then they were actually, I think, bought out by somebody else, and then they were bought out, and then we ended up with Blue Hen. So that's kind of a little bit of the history, that I think it was free at the beginning, but you know, I don't know whether the waste fee or solid waste and yard waste were calculated to add recycling to it. I don't know, but certainly I think it deserves investigation, so that everybody pays their fair share. You know, it's like an enterprise fund. It should be self-funding, not a profit maker, but self-funding, and it shouldn't cost us money. You know, as recycling grows, I had empirical data, again, as I said before, over the years, that as recycling grew, the tonnage of waste dropped. And so it was an interesting situation there. And so the more recycling we had, and especially because it was free at the time, was a great deal for us. But I'm not sure we've kept up with it. Anything else, Commissioner Byrne?
No, that's helpful, and I agree that we need to investigate that. Obviously, with this contract up at the end of this month in 2 weeks, there's not time to do that. But I think as we go forward, we really need to look at the opportunity here to self-fund this through property owners.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, just for clarification, is the city required by law to have a recycling program?
State law requires recycling, yes.
And to use single stream recycling, or is that defined?
I believe it's defined in state law, yes. My memory's fuzzy. I've been out of the State Recycling Council for a year and a half.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Legree?
Is this contamination checkup, is this a new thing? Have we ever had our recycling materials checked for contamination before?
I don't know if it's been checked before, but it is a new requirement starting July 1 of this year.
I've read numbers of as high as 38%. I think we need to be prepared for the rentals to have a rough go of it. But I guess education might do it. But I think it's a rocky road ahead of us on the contamination for single stream. Thanks, City Manager, and thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. You know, this is an interesting situation to me. I followed it, of course, from the beginning. I designed all the educational stickers that are on them right now. And so I believe that, you know, the key to minimizing contamination is the education program. I designed at one time the refrigerator magnet. It may be outdated now, but, you know, that was successful. My theory was always that keep it right in front of everybody's nose on the refrigerator, and so that they can see what is recyclable and what's not. And of course, the decal at point of where you dump it into the can, I thought was very important also, telling you the do's and don'ts. So I think Evan indicated last meeting that he's going to get some new decals and be placing those. I tell you, I love our cans, not just because I designed them, but because on the side they have a decal that says Rehoboth Beach Recycled. I just love driving down or walking around the neighborhood and looking up on Recycle Day and seeing can after can after can that says Rehoboth Beach Recycled. Because we've been a model from the very beginning. We took it and ran with it, and we are a success model. But yes, we can do better in the contamination thing. A little frustrating process for me because of the way it's charged, and it's just, I guess, just the way it is and the way we started with this program. We charge by the container. You know, we might want to find unused containers and see if we can pick them up or something. But here's the situation. You know, we pay per container, and we pay year round. So if we've got somebody that only rents 5 months of the year and the rest of the time it's winterized and vacant, we are paying for 5 months of recycling dumping at that house that's not needed. And it's just the way it is. Maybe the next go around we figure out how to deal with it. Looking at the rate rise in costs, considering that there's no change in the dump fee to the vendor, there is an increase in the fuel costs and labor costs. There's increased contamination risk. I agree with not rebidding it for this reason. I'm very concerned that, as Sharon said, that the existing vendor could pull out. I'm very concerned that with a new vendor that we might hire, and whether they could or would fulfill their contract. You know, when we were looking at beach concessions many years ago, the big fear was that, okay, we bid it out, we get a new vendor. The new vendor for beach concessions has to go buy all new beach chairs, all new shacks, all new umbrellas, and then they get halfway through the summer and crap out and go bankrupt. Then what good have we done by trying to save a few bucks and changing vendors? And I'm afraid of the same scenario in this, that we could get a new recycling vendor that underbids it, and by the time he gets to July and realizes traffic is hell to drive around in Rehoboth and do the collection, that he throws his hands up and gets out of town and leaves us hanging. I think that's a very real fear for me in this situation. Looking at the contract price, yipes. The price is going up the first year, by my calculation, 237%. The second year, 233%. And the third year, 231%. So that's a big hike. But then if we allow them to do the second term of 3 years, the fourth year, there's a 0% increase, and very minimal increases of 10 cents a unit for years 4, 5, and 6. So, there's some tweaking of the contract I'd prefer to see in here, but again, it's already executed. So if we rebid it, I would want to have a say-so in it. But otherwise, it's as stands, and so I would, for those reasons, be comfortable adopting it or approving the contract. Patrick, Commissioner Gossett, please.
Yes, thank you. Just for, if I could, with the city manager and Mr. Williams, a couple of specific questions on the contract itself. And I know there's been this discussion of contamination, but point 5, it says ownership of recovered material. All material loaded on Blue Hen's disposal vehicles shall be the property of Blue Hen Disposal. So would that not eliminate us from any exposure for contamination charges?
Correct.
We think so.
But you already said there's no charge to us, right?
Yes.
Well, I just.
So yes, I guess we're doubly protected, Commissioner.
And then point 7, non-recyclable materials in containers, in the event garbage, what have you. Blue Hen shall not be responsible for collecting, but submit address to the property. Did I kind of hear through conversations that doesn't really happen, or that's problematic?
I think it has not been happening recently. I don't know about years ago, but has not been happening recently. Blue Hen takes it. I think in many cases they have the automatic pickup, dumps it in the back, and you go. I'm sure with the, depending upon what their contamination rate would be determined to be, that they may be more attentive to looking at it before they dump it, but only time will tell. And at that point, then, it becomes regular trash, and I guess they would have to either transfer it over to a regular trash can, or knowing us, we'd go out and pick it up, put it in our trash can.
And we'll obviously, know when that report comes out and the audit is complete. So I will follow up and advise you, commissioners.
I think that's fine, but as the mayor mentioned that basically the truck is not exclusive to Rehoboth. So again, I'm just curious as to if this is part of the contract, we enforce it, or it just shouldn't be a part of the contract. But it's pretty much a done deal now. So again, if it's not enforceable or we don't see it necessary, perhaps in future negotiations, it shouldn't be there. Those are my questions. And Commissioner Legree, I will say your numbers are right on, and that works out to about $118 per household per year for pickup. And our seasonal cost that we charge our residents is $275, and annual is $300. So it's a little less percent that is going to go to, if it's separate funds, but it all falls under that area, less than 50%. So thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. I'd like to maybe do a correction here. When you say it's about $118 per household, I know households that have 1, 2, and 3 cans.
I'm sorry, per can.
Per can, right? Because some households have multiple cans. I mentioned last time the possibility when we talk about looking at the fees, looking at condos, and see whether we wanted to exclude them from city pickup. That would probably be a significant savings, or possibly. You're done, Commissioner Gossett. Commissioner Sharnowski?
Thank you, Mayor. This is very frustrating because and it's mostly timing. We're talking about educational aspects. I think that we should be fining houses that are not complying or contaminating their bins. But at this point, all of that is irrelevant because our prices are going up because Blue Hen is assuming risk and assuming that there's going to be high levels of contamination. And it doesn't matter if we try to mitigate that now because it's already gone up 90% or 88%. So that's the frustrating part. But all I can say is I think we're stuck. We got to move forward. But we need to start planning for 3 years from now when this is up, so that we're in the driver's seat and we can control some of the things, such as educating the people in our city, mitigating the contamination, and having more control over the pricing based on those things. But it's unfortunate we're just stuck where we are right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Legree?
Thanks, Mayor. I took these, my chart says $3.20 per can, $3.50 per can, $3.70 per can, and then for 25, $3.80, and for 27, $3.90. And that's about a 10% increase per year. Am I reading the wrong chart? And I sit down and try to calculate what it would cost us if we tried to do this ourselves. And you'd have to have a trash truck, you got to have mileage, you got to have people to operate it. And I think I'd have a heck of a time beating $3.20 a can per collection time. So I think if I have a chance to vote on this contract, I think I'm going to vote yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? Let me go to the public, if you don't mind. Walter Brittingham, are you still on?
I'm still on. I'd like to say thank you for the education, Mr. Mayor, from you, and for maybe to all the rest of us, that we have definitely have a better understanding. And the public just puts it out there, but it surely will be worthwhile in the next couple of years to monitor it. And I know the city, because of the amount of money, will do so. So to all of you, thank you.
Thank you. If there's no more comments from the commissioners, if you're ready, would you consider a motion to approve this? And if you do, do you want them to make a decision on whether to include in there the extension of term or to delete it? Or is it too late because it's in here?
No, I would, wait, to do that, in the future,
You mean,
for the additional 2 years.
delete the extension term of
Correct.
3 years.
Yes.
Delete, because it's pretty good pricing, but again, it locks us in. That's the only thing. It's excellent pricing. So by Sharon's recommendation, she would like to see approval of this contract or authorization to enter in the contract with the terms as noted, but for deletion of the extension of the term language. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Legree?
I still move, Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jay Legree and a second by Patrick Gossett to authorize the city manager to enter into the contract with Blue Hen Disposal under the terms in front of us, but for deletion of extension of term language. Any further discussion, Commissioner Czarnowski?
Glenn, can you just explain that extension? Is it not that we would be able to keep that extension in there because it is good pricing, but we'd still be able to terminate it without accepting the extension at that time, would we not?
So can we keep it in there for our advantage and be able to terminate it at our will?
So, while Glenn's looking at this, I will say that that's what we did with the current contract. It was for 3 years, and then, I did go my first, time with Blue Hen, and we did, go for the optional extension. So, unless, Glenn has a.
Yeah, it's subject to mutually agreed upon terms, so yeah, the city could get out at that point.
Yeah, then I would leave it in there for sure.
Well, if we can get out of it, would you be
That's fine.
amenable to that? It is good pricing.
Absolutely.
So, Patrick, I don't know how to do this. Would you amend your motion to include the contract as presented in entirety?
Yes.
Mayor, I moved that, and I would amend that to the contract exactly as written, and I don't know how to amend it. So I withdraw my motion.
Are you okay with that, Patrick?
Yes, that'll be fine for the adjustment.
Are we okay with that? So we have a motion and seconded on the floor that's been amended to authorize city manager to enter into the contract with Blue Hen Disposal, the contract in entirety as presented to us today. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Legree?
Aye.
Commissioner Scossett?
Aye.
Commissioner Gay? Is that a yes? Give a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
I was muted, sorry, aye.
Okay, Commissioner Caluzzi?
Aye.
Commissioner Byrne?
Aye.
Commissioner Czarnowski?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Our next item of business, new business, is update on Wilmington Baltimore Avenue streetscape concept design. Receive recommendations from the Wilmington Baltimore Task Force, and then consider recommendations relative to 5 items: the need or not for conducting a traffic study as a prerequisite to or to augment the design process, utilization of one-way streets or not, utilization of limited vehicle access zones or not in the first blocks of Wilmington and Baltimore Avenues, pertaining current traffic patterns and layout and enhancing the same. Also like to make note before we go further that there's a lot of support documents embedded to or links within the agenda there for you to have studied. The first thing I'd like to go over is the CDP. Actually, I'd like to remind everybody that Commissioner Caluzzi, Commissioner Sernowski, and myself are members of this task force, so we're well versed in everything. So hopefully, between the three of us, we can educate you all on what has happened to date. As far as the CDP goes, I do want to make you aware that the task force is well aware that their charge stems from the 2010 Comprehensive Development Plan, which states within that plan, quote, "The city should study how to physically upgrade the first 2 blocks of Baltimore and Wilmington Avenues and to improve their commercial viability, safety, ambiance, and access by pedestrians. It should include creation of a design image that would describe an architectural character for each block." Of course, that latter part about the design image is really not within our scope, but that's something that the commissioners might want to be attentive to concurrently or in the future as we go forward. So accordingly, the task force discussed the Rehoboth Beach Comprehensive Development Plan and its visions, goals, and priority actions, especially those contained in section 8.31, commercial revitalization, and section 7.3, access alternatives, and recommends that the Rossi Group and commissioners proceed with those visions, goals, and actions in mind. And actually, we will see that Rossi, as they go forth as part of their charge, is to consider the CDP in their designing. I would like to share with you that this is a very important issue, and so I want to be a little detailed. Rossi Group is the contracted design engineering consultant, and they recognize that the purpose of this project is to develop a streetscape improvement concept. The project area, as noted in the CDP, is the first 2 blocks of Baltimore and Wilmington, but it's also the connector streets along South and First Streets, and also Second Streets, the South and the North. The streets, of course, encompass the downtown commercial core of Rehoboth Beach, and some of their objectives for Rossi are to evaluate the ability to widen walkways to better accommodate pedestrian traffic and outdoor activities, including dining where appropriate, everything being ADA accessible. Examine existing crossings and provide recommendations to increase safe pedestrian bicycle travel. Put it on the screen there. So you can see the other objectives there. I don't need to go through them. But one thing's important to know that Rossi understands that there was going to be a street tape task force created to work with them, and that Rossi's first charge is to develop streetscape schematics. They'll provide 3 high-level schematics, retaining general roadway circulation and layout and improved pedestrian sidewalk areas, safety, and circulation. That's the first high-level schematic. The other schematic, this is in their job scope, the other schematic that they propose is converting roadways to pedestrian use only and or one-way streets, and then a third schematic to be determined. The reason what we're doing this with this exercise is to examine their desire to do these schematics. By example, they are going to do a schematic to convert roadways to pedestrian use only. Our charge of the task force was to take a look at that and see whether indeed we agreed with that or not, because if we did not agree, then there was no point in having Rossi spend their time on that. Same thing with one-way streets. So, the objectives of our task force meetings are: number 1, to evaluate and make recommendations to the commissioners on specific design concepts, 5 concepts. the need or not for conducting a traffic study as a prerequisite to or augment the design process, undergrounding of utilities in whole or in part, utilization of one-way streets or not, utilization of limited vehicle access zones or not in the first blocks of Wilmington and Baltimore Avenues, and retaining current traffic patterns and layouts and enhancing the same. I do want to share with you that we have 16 members on the task force. They're a group of residents as well as business persons in the project area, all with a great perspective, and they've done a good job. How I would like to approach this, because the goal or objective of today is that after receiving the task force recommendations, the Board of Commissioners are to similarly evaluate and determine paths forward for the Rossi Group. How I'd like to proceed today is I have some slides I'd like to go through quickly that were part of a task force discussion. And then I would like to come back and review each topic and recommendation from the task force, allow the commissioners to have individual input on each topic. I'd like to have the public have input individually. And then I'd like to go back after all our review and actually conduct votes on each of these so that we can conclude with path forward for Rossi. If we're comfortable at that time to vote, because I'll ask you at that time if we want to defer to a future meeting. With that, I'd like to go to through some slides. The reason I want to go through these slides is kind of give you a little background, just very, very little, minimal, using the illustrations or photographs. And then during our discussion, if we want to, we can refer to them and I can bring them back up. One of our topics has to do with a traffic study and the need or not for conducting a traffic study as a prerequisite to or augment the design problem. So we'll get to that and we see our recommendations in a little bit. One of the questions came up as well, should the traffic study be just the project area or should it encompass the entirety of the town? We also talk about undergrounding utilities in whole or in part. As you can see from some of these pictures of what the aerials look like currently right now, you've got the big transformers on top of the telephone poles, you've got light fixtures attached to the telephone poles, and you've got wires crossing the street. Or the good news is that the overhead wiring and telephone poles are largely just on one side of the street, but they're ugly, and the other side's a little cleaner, nicer looking, except for the wires crossing the street. Undergrounding example is a good example is Rehoboth Avenue. All those overhead aerials were taken out and put at ground level. You can see the, I think this is probably a phone box, and this is electric box, and different things are mounted in the median. Of course, that's the good news. The bad news is we don't have medians on Baltimore and Wilmington, so these would have to be designed to be placed somewhere. Now, there's also alternatives we looked at. You know, one is how can we clean up these aerial cans and make them look nicer or smaller, etc. The other option was doing a partial undergrounding and just eliminating the wires that cross the street and enhancing the wiring. As you can see from this series of photographs, it's just a reminder. I think the best thing for you to do is to walk around town looking upwards and see all these wires that go from one side to the other and all the transformers. Look, you've got three here, two, all the way down the north side, the first block of Wilmington Avenue. This is Lake Avenue Phase 1. This is Bad Hair Day on the left and Cultured Pearl all the way down on the right. You can see this streetscape did not utilize undergrounding at that time, largely because of the cost and also because of the difficulties in placing all the transformers on the ground without any property owners giving us permission to utilize part of their property. It made it very difficult, and maybe Patrick can contribute later because he was part of that design process. But you can see all the new poles are up here, and they're evenly spaced and redone. Now, this may or may not be a good example of how to clean up the poles because they're missing a lot of the transformers up here. Because some are put on the ground, but most of them are just not visible. When we get to one-way streets, we talked about different options on as far as the task force went. You can see that here's one-way streets all the way around on 1st Street, 2nd Street, Baltimore, and Wilmington. This is, of course, one-way streets in a clockwise direction. Another option was counterclockwise direction. And of course, you've got to be careful about how to get here and there using the existing traffic patterns. A third option is to maintain two-way traffic on 1st Street and 2nd Street and go one way either way on Wilmington and Baltimore, or reverse it, or go the same direction. But as you can see on these diagrams, if you looked at them earlier, they all have the potential to be have good points and bad points to them. One of the things that we found important on the committee is when we're talking about one-way streets, we need to kind of define what a one-way street is. By example, this is the new section of Maryland Avenue extended, where the breaker's on the right here, Bad Hair Day to my rear here. And this shows one travel lane in the center with parking on the left and the right. This could be one type of traffic lane, one-way layout that could afford wider sidewalks on each side and bike lanes. But the problem is on a commercial street, if you've got a truck up here parked for delivery, there are 0 cars going to get around them. Whereas in this scenario, you've got 2-lane traffic with parking on the left and the right, and the ability for delivery trucks to park on one side or the other and vehicles to get around them. It doesn't stop traffic in entirety. So still talking about one-way streets. There's a potential to change parking. The other thing we talked about is limited vehicle access zones. Rossi came up with that term instead of pedestrian plazas that I started using. Pedestrian plazas gave the denoted 0 vehicles, whereas limited vehicle access zones allow limited vehicle access. Of course, we've got hotels that need to get patrons to their hotel parking lots. We've got deliveries that need to take place. This is a picture here that's very, very attractive. You've got outdoor dining and deliveries, and these vehicles are not high traffic lanes. They're really just going up and down the road slowly, and you can see all the pedestrian areas there. So LVA, or limited vehicle access zones, where could they be? The task force discussed them about being in the entirety of the first block of Baltimore, the entirety of the first block of Wilmington, or either or, you know, do one and don't do the other. But we also talked about as an option, partial limited vehicle access zones, with determining where this transition was debatable. Could it be up here? Could it be down there? But you'll see later that there are pros and cons to this, and you'll see what their recommendation was. That's it. Oh, don't forget scooter parking. So with that, I want to go back. See what's next here. I would like to make a little, I call it a little disclaimer. The task force recognized that there could be different outcomes, different recommendations if we started off with a traffic study or if other information was provided. And frankly, there were frustrations from all of us that we didn't have some of the information and couldn't get all our questions answered. But everybody on the task force was very understanding, and we all played the cards that we were dealt and gave you the best recommendation we could and analysis using the information at hand. Everybody used their own varied perspectives of being a restaurateur or a retailer or a visitor or a property owner. And I have to say myself, I'm very proud of this task force and the participating public. They were all very active and nobody was bashful and everybody gave opinions. We approached everything very methodically and with discussion and identified the pros and cons and offered comments and questions. If any questions were left unanswered, we provided those here. So in the one support document that's labeled Task Force Analysis and Recommendations, you would have seen each topic listed, the 5 topics that we wanted to review with you all today and see if we could work toward a vote to be able to conclude these topics and give Rossi some direction. So we'll take them one at a time. And as we take them one at a time, I'd like your feedback or comments or something on that. Not ready for a vote because I'd like to get your comments and ask the public comment again for each one, and then we'll come back and conduct a vote. Again, if we're ready. This is a lot of information to absorb. I recognize it is. While some of us are attuned to everything, we want to get everybody else up to speed. So the first, any questions to date? Everybody all right? So the first topic is the need or not for conducting a traffic study as a prerequisite to or augment the design process. You can see the pros, that obviously there would be advantages, but the city manager did indicate that even though we haven't had a traffic plan, Rossi would come back to us with some recommendations for traffic patterns, especially if one-way schematic is desired. If we decide to go one ways, and they'll do some layouts and come back and say a couple of things work, a couple of things don't. Kevin, if you want to chime in on anything, or let me know. There's some different negatives and then different comments there. So I'm going to go fairly quickly here and go right to the recommendation. But certainly, if anybody wants to point to a pro or con or advantage, disadvantage, or comment, then I would like you to bring them up. Because again, we had a lot more discussion than we are going to have right now. The task force ended up recommending that a traffic study is not necessary to proceed with the design that we should proceed without a traffic study. And the vote was 14-1. And the no vote really thought that the traffic study would be beneficial in evaluating, but of course everybody else voted otherwise, recognizing that there would not be time for a traffic study, which is very important to point out. One of the cons is conducting a traffic study requires time and would delay the design project. City manager indicated that timing for use of the funds is not specific other than a timeline with Rossi, but that if we followed the city manager suggests, we would lose the $100,000 grant. In other words, if we wanted to conduct the traffic study, we would have to put the design on hold and likely lose our funding. The second recommendation about the traffic study said that in lieu of a true traffic study, the commissioner should consider other options to provide relevant data to help decisions in the future as topics come up. And that was also a 14-1 vote. I'd like to entertain any discussion or further explanation or clarification from task force members as well as the other commissioners. And I can't see, so you're going to have to just speak up because I can't see everybody.
Mayor,
Anybody?
I think you did
Yeah.
an excellent job articulating that, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Again, I can't see your pictures, so you're going to have to just speak up. Okay, well, we've got our pros and cons. We've got a few comments. We've got recommendations. If there's no further commissioner comment, I'd like to go to the public. Walter?
Job. You're doing a good job.
Thank you, Walter. Alex Papajohn, are you still on? Oh, apparently Alex dropped off. Very good. With that then, if there's no further commissioner comments, I'm going to keep moving on. We talked about utilization of one-way streets or not. Do we want to go with any of those scenarios? Again, we thought you've got to define what a one-way street is because it's a great idea. Let's do it. Let's pursue it until we find that it's not feasible. And I think that's a good philosophy that we are interested in it and we'll move forward with it the best and keep presenting information and let's see if we can get far enough to get a better costing information, better timing information for those businesses that were worried about undergrounding impacting their businesses, et cetera. Also, we've got to be mindful that undergrounding is not necessarily a pristine skyline because of 5G and the future proliferation of 6G, which according to Dr. Trejos, gave a nice presentation that 6G is on its way already, apparently. You know, we're used to maybe just one or two 5G antennas per block, and it could be 6G, could be many multiple antennas per block. So we still got that in the air. So we just have to keep it. But I think it is an excellent program to pursue undergrounding while a parallel schematic about what do you do if it proves too expensive. What are the alternatives? Jay, do you want to finish up?
Yeah. Florida Power and Light says $5 million a mile to change from above ground to underground in city areas. But that's just a guess. They give a range from 500,000 to 5 million. So in our case, we'd have to put cable, telephone, internet, and electric all in the same trench. And yeah, there's just a lot of great information. And there's several pages of Q&A. So it was a great education for me. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett?
Yeah, just add a few comments. I mean, working on the Lake Avenue Phase 1 project, we considered undergrounding. And as Commissioner Legree mentioned, it's not just the power, but you've got to have a separate conduit for Verizon, for Comcast, for the power, for street light cables, all of that information, plus water, sanitary sewer, stormwater sewer. So there's a lot that goes underground, if you will. And I mean, I'm very supportive of it, but it's not just limited to Delaware Power and Light. There's other things to consider in undergrounding. And then also, we don't lose the power poles per se. We get prettier power poles, if we will, for the light poles that exist, as you will, on Rehoboth Avenue or on the Boardwalk. So it's not a clean, pristine site of no poles at all, because we still need to certainly light the streets. But just to put that into perspective, but certainly support going forward with the concept of undergrounding.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Byrne?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I got cut off for maybe 10 minutes, so I missed a little bit of your presentation, Mayor. I'm not going to ask you to repeat it. That's not my point. What I do want to do
I'll be glad to.
I want to compliment the three of you and the task force. I've read all of these materials. I watched all three of the meetings, and I just thought it's been an outstanding process to date. You really worked well and stayed on task, focused on the goals. And so congratulations.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to the other members, Commissioner. Appreciate it. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, thanks. First, I want to echo what Commissioner Byrne just said. Not only is that an excellent summary that you gave today, but I too have been watching the meetings, and I've been very impressed with the thoughtful discussions among the entire group. And I think it's exciting to see this goal of the CDP being realized, or at least being started. So congratulations to everyone. I'll also say another thing that struck me as a real positive is the consensus that has been gathered in the process. I mean, obviously the kind of project we're talking about is going to change the streetscape, forever. And it's important that the decisions made going forward do have a consensus, and it's not, divided so that we question, are we doing the right thing? And I just think that the nature of the discussions that led to that consensus is very comforting given the scope of the project. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so supportive of all of the options.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Caluzzi.
Yes, following on with what Commissioner Gay said, it was a good group of people on this task force. And yeah, underground utilities is a #1 priority. If we don't do it now, when? I mean, it would be, if we went through all of the pain of doing a streetscape without undergrounding, it would be another 30 years or so before we ever did something like that. So I'm hoping we can push forward with this. And I think the main thing I want to say is we don't have to do a whole street all at once. We could do blocks, at different times if we need to. But I think that's, for me, the biggest focus is undergrounding those utilities. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Commissioner Sernowski?
No, I ditto everything everyone else said. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have I gone to the public on this? Yeah, we've done each of the ones individually. Walter, you've taken care of. If there's no more commissioner comments, we have a motion on the floor by somebody. Who made the motion?
Commissioner Shinusky, seconded by Commissioner Caluzzi.
Okay, the two task force members. Again, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sernowski and a second by Commissioner Caluzzi to adopt all the recommendations of the task force regarding streetscape recommendations. I want to do a roll call vote. Commissioner Legree?
I vote aye, and I am especially proud of Pat and Ed. They're doing a great job keeping it real, saying good things, keeping everything steady. I'm just proud of them. Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll pass that on to him. Commissioner Gay?
Aye.
Commissioner Caluzzi?
Aye.
Commissioner Sernowski?
Aye.
Commissioner Gossett?
Aye.
Commissioner Byrne?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. It's unanimously approved that we recognize and adopt all the recommendations from the Wilmington-Baltimore Avenue Streetscape Task Force. Thank you very much. Let me share with you before we go on what the next steps will be. On or about, our next task force meeting tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, May 26th. At that time or sometimes before that, Rossi Group will present their initial schematics to us. If they're on schedule, that's what's hoped for. And once they present their schematics, we've indicated at least 2 schematics and possibly a third one. And once they present them to us, then the task force will take a look at them and make recommendations to pare it down to 1 schematic, and we'll keep in touch with you all too, so that you can have a voice as well. I wanted to thank Evan Miller and Kevin Williams and Sharon. They're part of the project team working directly with Rossi and DelDOT, and they've invested a lot of time in this. And it's been difficult time at times because having weekly meetings means you've only got 5 days to prepare for the next one. And I want to thank everybody for that. With that, are there any final questions on the Wilmington Streetscape project? If not, we're going to move to the next item of business. If I can find the agenda. There it is. The next item of business is to consider approval of a settlement agreement to resolve the case of Knights of Columbus Star of the Sea? Star of the Sea Council 7297 versus the City of Rehoboth Beach, civil case number 120-CV00841-LPS. This item may include an executive session because it involves commissioners receiving legal advice and opinion from an attorney regarding litigation as permitted by 29 Del C, which is the Freedom of Information Act, section 10,004 B4. If anyone would like to go into executive session and what's provided for in the agenda and it's appropriate, and if so, then I would take a motion to go into executive session for the reasons stated in the agenda. And I'd like you to recite the agenda language. Nobody wants to go? You've got a chance to go into executive session. If not, then you can certainly talk privately also. You're not restricted from doing that. Just if you have any private questions, that's what the executive session is for.
Are we voting on this today?
Yes, my intention is to, yes.
Then I would like to go into executive session.
Would you make a motion to do that and then read the agenda language, please?
Okay. Bear with me. I'd like to go into executive session to consider the approval of a settlement agreement to resolve the case Knights of Columbus, Start of the Sea Council versus the City of Rehoboth Beach, civil case number 120 CV00841 LPS. This item may include an executive session because it involves the commissioners receiving legal advice and opinion from an attorney regarding litigation that's permitted by Del 29 C10004 B4.
So I have a motion to go into executive session. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Pactaluzzi and a second by Commissioner Gay to go into executive session as stated. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. And we're going into executive session. Before we pause, I'd like to let the public know that we're going in for the reasons stated. There will be no actions taken inside the executive session. We will come back after we've talked for an unknown amount of time. I never know the duration of these executive sessions, but at some point when we come back out, we will come back into public session. And if we take any action, it would be done in front of the public at that time. With that, we'll say goodbye to the public and hang tight. All right, we are back into public session. Actually, we need a motion to go back into public session.
Mayor, I move to go back into a public session.
Second.
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Sernowski and a second by Commissioner Gay to go back into public session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. And the motion is carried. We are back in public session. With that, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll move to accept the settlement agreement related to the Knights of Columbus Star of the Sea Council 7297 versus the City of Rehoboth Beach as presented to us in executive session.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Sernowski and a second by Commissioner Calusi to approve the settlement agreement between the city and the Knights of Columbus that's in front of us today. I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Legree?
Aye.
Commissioner Gay?
Aye.
Commissioner Calusi?
Aye.
Commissioner Sernowski?
Aye.
Commissioner Byrne?
Aye.
Commissioner Gossett?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. And with that, excuse me, we'll go to commissioner announcements and comments.
And we can cut Dan free if you.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you all very much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Commissioner announcements and comments. I would just like to remind everybody that April 24th is Saturday, is Drug Disposal Day here at the police department. I'd also like to let everybody know that tomorrow, April 17th, has been proclaimed where is it? Marine Corps League Day. I'll be speaking in front of the Marine Corps League tomorrow, welcoming them. Their Mideast Division Convention is here. I'm glad they chose our city. And if you see any Marines walking around, I hope you give them a little friendly citizen salute. With that, does anybody else have any commissioner comments?
Mayor, I have a comment.
Commissioner Byrne, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll make this very brief because of the late hour. And then I will, after today, ask that this go on to the May workshop for discussion. I just want to bring to your attention House Bill number 146 that has been filed in the legislature in Dover. It's an act to amend Title 15 of the Delaware Code relating to municipal elections. And the long and the short of it is that of the 57 municipalities in our state, 12 currently have an agreement with the state to be able to use the state's voter registration for their municipal voter registration. Obviously, Rehoboth Beach is not one of those 12. This bill would streamline voter registration to make it much easier for people to vote in municipal elections, so that when you register with the state as a voter, then you're automatically registered in your municipality to vote. There is a provision in it for non-residents and a requirement that municipalities would still register non-residents to be able to vote. It does streamline voting. It'll make voting easier. It will likely increase voter participation. And so with all of that said, Mayor, I'll ask for some discussion on this, possibly some support for this at our May workshop. Thank you.
Yes, that's on our radar. Thank you for reminding us, Commissioner. Anybody else? Comments, announcements? If not, I want to review future meeting dates. Our next special pandemic meeting would be Tuesday, April 27th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then Monday, May 10th would be our next regular scheduled workshop meeting. If there's any further comment, if there's no further comment, then I adjourn the meeting at 5:45 p.m.